When it comes to the issue of pensions for public sector workers, the latest headlines illustrate that there is a big problem when it comes to funding this vital retirement resource. And that is a problem because of the number of retired people relying on this defined monthly benefit that was supposed to be guaranteed for the remainder of their lives. For Americans who are 65 and older, defined benefit pensions make up nearly 18% of their current income, while Social Security makes up almost 37%. What is important to note is that as many as 30% of all state and local workers are not covered by the Social Security system. Because back when Social Security was created in 1935 by FDR, all state and local government employees across the country were prohibited from participating in the program. Now, that's because there were constitutional concerns about the federal government levying a tax on state governments. Amendments to the Social Security Act in the 1950s changed this, but states are not required to participate. So for those public sector workers who don't get Social Security, their pensions become crucial to their retirement survival. Without Social Security, they are missing a key part of the retirement three-legged stool model, which consists of a pension, Social Security, and supplemental savings. And to be honest, retirees may be teetering on only one of those legs, since the median total savings of older households amounts to a little more than $45,000. But that last leg on the stool isn't looking so good either. Since 2011, more than 40 states have enacted some form of pension changes, but their pension liability between 2011 and 2012 increased by 24%. And the shortfalls to the state pension systems keep rising. Some states owe an amount equal to or above their annual revenue. While states are scrambling to plug the poorly funded pension holes they've dug for themselves, one city's pension system is about to implode. Detroit's proposed bankruptcy plan would cut the benefit checks of general city workers by 34% and 10% for police and firefighters. The city's two pension funds are urging federal judges to rush an appeal on the city's bankruptcy eligibility before Detroit can get approval for its restructuring plan. The urgency was noted by one of the lawyers in the case, who wrote, "The proposed plan would thrust thousands of the more than 20,000 current Detroit retirees into a state of poverty from which they may never recover." And the decision in Detroit could have far-reaching consequences. Yes, retirees could be thrust into poverty because of slashes to their benefits, but this could also set a precedent for how cash-strapped cities deal with their pension problems. At the table, Lynnette Khalfani-Cox, co-founder and personal finance expert at AskTheMoneyCoach.com and financial expert at AARP. Connie Razza, director of strategic research at the Center for Popular Democracy. Arun Gupta, a contributor at The Guardian, In These Times, and The Progressive. Arun is also the founder of the Occupied Wall Street Journal. And Karen Friedman, executive vice president and policy director at the Pension Rights Center. Thank you all for being here. Karen, I'm coming to you first. How bad is the problem that states are facing when it comes to pensions? And more importantly, how was it created?
Well, let's just put it this way. Right now, there is a campaign of misinformation that's being promoted, often by some ideologues that really want to undercut pension plans in this country, that are anti-union and want to turn the whole country into a system of 401k plans. The fact is that retirees have been largely scapegoated. Everybody is saying, oh, you know, pension plans are bankrupting cities, they're bankrupting states. But the fact of the matter is, it's untrue. The fact of the matter is that most state and city pension plans are well funded, according to the Center for Retirement Research at Boston College. There's a few bad apples. You have Illinois, you have Kentucky, you have a few others. But in those situations, it's not because of the size of the retirees' benefits. It's not because of any of that. It's because state legislators have acted badly and they haven't funded the plan. But I want to say something about Detroit. In Detroit, that situation is outrageous and it's heartbreaking for retirees. You have the city workers gave their lifetimes to the city. You're talking about the street sweepers. You're talking about the clerks. You're talking about firefighters and police officers. They gave up wages, often contributed themselves into the pension plan with the promise of getting a pension plan, a pension benefit that would be a lifetime guaranteed plan. In fact, these were backed by Michigan's state constitution that they could never be reduced. So what ended up happening? The city and the emergency manager in Detroit went in and filed bankruptcy, mostly to get out of those pension obligations. As you said before, it's outrageous right now that these pensioners are facing these huge and dramatic cuts. And at the same time, I want to just point out to you that the bondholders, many of whom are the same financial institutions that caused the problems in Detroit, they helped precipitate the economic crisis in this country, they're now coming in and saying, you know what, the retirees, we need full restitution. We're going to take that money out of the pension plans. And that's outrageous. It's immoral.
And Arun, let's talk where these contributions for public pensions have come from. More than 60% is from investment returns. And you say the system should be restructured. How?
Well, I think it should be restructured by making guaranteed monthly income for all elderly people. We should double the Social Security payments to the elderly. That would put us on the level of France and Germany. As you pointed out, about 37% of retirees' income comes from Social Security. In European countries, it's closer to 70%. And as to those who say it can't be done, it can be done very easily. If we lift the payroll tax cap, if we get rid of the employer tax breaks for pensions, we won't need that any longer. And then if we get rid of the home interest mortgage deduction, 75% of which goes to households who earn over $100,000 or more, we could fully fund a doubling of Social Security, and that would have an incredible economic benefit to all of society.
Connie, if we look at median pension numbers, the sums are not big. So if there's slashes to these types of numbers, how can people, especially seniors, be expected to survive?
Well, that's really the question, right? Are we going to take seriously our commitment to the folks who made possible our quality of life? I mean, the attack on pensions is really an attack on public services as a whole. It's an investment, a long-term investment that we've committed to, and we've committed to in contracts. Look, the excesses, the bad decisions, the recklessness of politicians who didn't fully fund their contributions to the pension funds that are struggling right now are just being exacerbated by the recklessness of Wall Street, who's serving who's trying to convince folks that they need to take on crazy, exotic, and risky instruments in order to move to more to try and make up for those losses.
Right. Lynnette, I'm going to go back to the three-legged stool. Savings is a big and necessary part of it, but people just aren't. They're not saving. Why aren't people saving more, and how is that contributing to the retirement income deficit?
Well, we know, as you mentioned, that in theory, one of the great ways that you can secure a great future for yourself financially is to have multiple streams of income when you're in your golden years. Of course, for many pensioners, that is being taken away and you know, these levels that we're talking about today. The fact is, so many Americans are living hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck right now that they feel like they can't save for the future, especially when you talk about the 50-plus crowd. The data is actually quite alarming. So many people haven't saved not only enough for retirement, but many Americans, about half of all Americans, have more in debt than they have in savings. Another survey recently found that 1 out of 3 Americans has less than $1,000 in savings. So there is no safety net there for a lot of people. If they don't have the pensions to help backstop them, to help provide a source of income when they're no longer able to work, and obviously, as you said, a lot of these pensioners in public municipalities, et cetera, also don't have the contributions to or the checks from Social Security, their only source of income will be their own savings. And it just hasn't materialized for so many people. They're dealing with higher costs of health care, higher food, higher housing expenses, higher insurance premiums. The list goes on and on. And I fear that we are not only going to put a generation of Americans into poverty, but the next generation as well.
Right. Okay, we have a lot more to get to. Hang on with me for a moment, folks. When we come back, I'm going to tell you how some of the biggest CEOs in America are doing with their pensions.